So what is my opinion on a training split that looks like upper body, lower body, and then the last day of the week, a mix of upper body and lower body. So 3 sessions a week, where I have one upper, one lower, and then one full body workout. That's fine. I mean, this is an approach you can use. I'm fine with this, especially more with entry, medium level, gen pop, not a big athletic background training perspective. I think that can work. But because the thing with me, like the way I look at training splits, is if you're a true beginner with no training background, no athletic experience, nothing like that, poor nervous system, poor learning ability, then I would much rather see that client do full body workouts 2 or 3 times a week to really push the learning experience. And then once you have a client that's a little bit more advanced, or as advanced as you can be on 2 or 3 times a week training, and they have an athletic background, their nervous system is effective or efficient, then I do feel that if you're going to train 3 times a week, you're better off doing upper, lower, upper, then the week after lower, upper, lower. Because at this point, it makes sense to have a more focused training session and really drive volume and intensity on that focus, and then you allow a little bit more recovery, and then the next session you're focusing another segment of the body. To me, it allows you to push to a greater extent. Now, if you want to do an hybrid, that's fine, but now you have to understand that you have one session a week, so once every 7 days you're really pushing the upper body. Once every 7 days, you're really pushing the lower body. Then you have that one day where you're doing a hybrid of both. So you're stimulating, but not fully either or. So it's fine, but I just think in the long run, the outcome will not be as big. So when the goal is relative strength, does the B and C series fit the same time under tension range? The answer is no. So relative strength, the typical time under tension used for that is 1 to 20 seconds. So if you're doing sets of 5 with a 4-0-x-0 tempo, that's 20 seconds of time under tension. So this is what you will do on your A series with your primary multi-joint compound exercises like the squat, deadlift, bench, overhead, dip. So these exercises is what will give you your response of relative strength. Now the B series and the C series, we're talking respectively about the assistance and the remedial exercises. And the nature of these exercises don't call for super high intensities. So you can never do a workout, like you would never do, let's say, 8 sets of 3 on your A series with your bench press, and then 5 sets of 4 on the B series, and then 4 sets of 5 on the C series. It doesn't make any sense, not only in relation to the exercise selection, but also in a neural perspective. Most people are not going to be able to maintain 85% plus intensity for an entire 60-minute training session. So you can't really look at it that way. Not only that, but the C series, this is typically when you're using single joint exercises. So if you're doing a fly, for example, a flat low pulley fly, you're not going to do 4 sets of 5 on a fly. It just does not make sense for the goal and the purpose of this isolation single joint movement for the pec. So because of the nature of the exercise, the intensity needed for this is much lower than relative strength. So although your goal is relative strength with your primary exercises, it doesn't matter. As soon as you move on to your B's and to your C's, you have a limited range of intensities that you need to use for these exercises at this point in time in the training session irrespective of your relative strength goal. Okay, so you might be doing 6x4 in your A series, your B series, you might be doing 6 or 8 reps. Then your C series, maybe 8 or 10 reps. So you see, because of that, the time of retention, unless you're going super fast with your tempo, your time of retention will not fit within that 1 to 20 second time frame. But it's okay, because that's not the goal of the B and the C series. How do I gauge the load when I'm training using methods like contrast training? So, I mean, this is very, very simple. So contrast training, for example, the classical contrast training, is you have a velocity contrast in a superset fashion. So you have A1, A2, where the A1 might be a squat, so a back squat, very heavy at a slower tempo, and then your A2 right after, so like maybe 10 or 15 seconds after, you do like more of a plyometric reactive strength type exercises where the speed of movement is very, very fast, but the load is much lighter. Okay, so an example could be A1 back squat, 5 sets of 3, 4-0-x-0, 10 seconds rest or 15 seconds rest. A2 reactive squat jump for sets of 5 sets of 6, 1-0-x-0 tempo, and then 3 or 4 minutes rest depending on your strength or size. Okay, so this would be a typical contrast. Now for the load, you just use the 1RM continuum. So your back squat for your sets of 3, so you want basically your 3RM or close to your 3RM, which would be close to 90% of your 1RM. So that would be the load you would use for your sets of 3. Now the reactive squat jump, this is also very simple. The rule on reactive squat jump is 10% of your 1RM back squat. So if your 1RM back squat is 200 kilos, 10% of 200 kilos, 20 kilos. So all you need to use as far as weight goes is 20 kilos, which is the weight of a empty barbell. So you see, you do your back squat for sets of 3 with 90% of your 1RM, and then you do your reactive squat jump with 10% of your 1RM. And the thing is, this is the load that's needed for the expression of that method. If you were to use 50% of 1RM on your reactive squat jump, the problem is your ground contact time would be so slow that you're not training reactivity. So you're not really getting the purpose. So to answer your question specifically, you need to know which method you're using. And then with whatever method you're using, you need to know the rules of loading for that method, which differs drastically depending on what method or what exercise you're doing. Which is why, like as a side note, which is why we've created this year our specialty technique seminar, which we're going to review all of these methods and the specifics. So the sets, the reps, the loading of all of this, because it's too widespread. So there's not like one specific rule I can give you on contrast training that will fit everything. Okay, but at least on the slow, heavy part of the contrast approach, just know that the load selection is your RM. As simple as that. How do I structure advanced bodyweight workouts? I do not design bodyweight workouts. What are my thoughts on alternating bench press workouts with a barbell and bench press workouts with dumbbells? That's great. I mean, that's fine, especially if you're more advanced. If you're more advanced and you already mastered your bench press technique with a barbell, like you're already proficient at it, you're already kind of reached a high level, then I think it's actually beneficial to do that, because it allows to deload the shoulders a little bit. It allows you to tap in a different motor unit pool while you're still training the same motor pattern. So I think it has its advantage. Not only that, but people who follow my work, they know that for me, whenever I use a pressing movement with dumbbells, I always do a neutral grip. So the neutral grip, the advantage is not only does it allow for greater range of motion because the weight stack are kicked out so they're not blocked by the shoulder, but on top of it, it puts your humerus in a more natural position for the shoulder joint. So it's a little bit less stress on the glenohumeral joint than if you're pronated all the time. So if you're really advanced, really strong, create a lot of stress on the shoulders every time you bench, well then alternating a barbell workout with a dumbbell workout might be a good approach. Or a barbell phase with a dumbbell phase will work as well. So yeah, I'm not against this. I think it's a good practice for the more advanced trainees. Best grip position for a front squat, close or wide? There's so many variabilities with this because it really does depend on your client's shoulder and wrist mobility. So some people are going to have to be closer, some people are going to have to go wider, but technically speaking, my favorite position is where you're grabbing the barbell right outside of the shoulders. So now what happens is you're engaging, the rotator cuffs will be engaged, obviously, you're going in an external rotation, but by doing so, it allows you to have a better position at the upper back. So your front rack position will be much firmer, much tighter. The upper back will be more active than if everything is so closed and your shoulders are internally rotated. If the shoulders are internally rotated, the activation of the upper back that's stabilizing the torso just won't be as great. So that's why I like to have the hands outside of the shoulders, but it really is a matter of mobility. Now, an option though, if you can't get into that position, is simply to use wrist straps around the barbell, and then you hold the wrist straps in a neutral grip. But even doing so, I still prefer going outside of the shoulder just to help with that upper back position. Should you rotate the time of day at which you train? No. I mean, to be honest, like I think training, it's a habit thing. It's a question of like setting habits, being consistent, consistency, circadian rhythm, like timing of day. Like most people, like I remember when I was at university, like for the first year, I would always train around like lunchtime. And that's how like my body had adapted. I was really good training at lunchtime. And then one semester I just couldn't. So I started training at 6 a.m. That was horrible for me. At 6 a.m., my poundages, my load were 15-20% lighter. I just couldn't really do it. And I stuck to it for a while. It took me a long time before I became efficient training at 6 a.m. And then right when I started feeling a little bit more comfortable at 6 a.m., then I had openings again to train at lunch. I just went back to lunch because it was just more natural to me. So for me, if you're switching your times around all the time and you constantly have to readapt to that new time, especially in the early morning when like synovial fluids are not even like really optimized in the joints and the central nervous system is not really that driven, I just don't think it's the greatest time to train. But hey, you do what you got to do. If your work and schedule only allows you to train at random times all the time, so be it. But if you have the freedom to select a specific time in which to train that builds consistency and habit, then I think you should stick to that. I just don't see the advantage of switching your times all over the place unless you compete in an event where the competition might happen at whatever time during the day and you have no idea. Maybe at that point, for a specific reason, for a specific purpose, you can play around at different times simply if you're going to be able to respond properly to the stimulus at whatever time frame. But this is a very kind of isolated case. For the most part, I don't see any value in doing that.